Hi, everyone. My name is Mia Park. Welcome to In Response, interviews with intriguing internalizers. And I am so happy and honored to interview, so far, friends and family from all over the universe on their internal responses to this very intense outside world. Okay, it is July 20th, 2020, 7/20/2020, and we're in the middle of a health pandemic, COVID-19. And we are also in the middle of the long overdue fight for racial justice. So the world is really intense right now. Some may say even on fire. And one of the cooling aspects, one of the cooling people in the world here with me is Chaiya Beth Sherman. Woo! Hi.
Hi. Hi.
So, hi. So Beth or Elizabeth, when we met, we went to college together. Very intense and kooky liberal arts college called Shimer. It was a great book school. That's a whole other talk. But by the nature of what it was, it attracted interesting people like Chaiya, like me, and we'll just leave it there.
Yeah.
But we went to college together, and it's so nice to see you again. And she is now an acupuncturist and herbalist in Seattle, Washington. Hi.
Yeah. Hi. Hi. You know what's interesting is that a number of us became acupuncturists.
Really?
Yeah. There's a handful of us that went on to acupuncture school. I think it was because it was such a heavy Western philosophy that we all were like, but what about over here? What's over here in the East?
Yeah. You know what's so interesting? I actually did the opposite. I don't know if you know this, but I was living in Korea when I found out about Shimer.
Oh, no. I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I came back to the States was I was like, well, eventually I will go to that college. So I actually applied for Shimer by writing a letter from living in Seoul.
Good for you.
So I went, yeah, and then so for friends, we had to write an undergraduate thesis and take the GREs in order to get our BAs or our degrees. So my undergrad thesis was on Korean shamanism.
Interesting.
Yeah,
mine was actually on Qi, but mine was on Qi, but I had to couch it in Western terms. So I made it about hands-on healing in massage history, like through a medical history, but it was totally about Qi.
Isn't that interesting? And here we are. So can you say more about, is there anything else you want people to know about you? Because we could go on about this forever.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I'm just here doing the thing, living the dream.
Yeah, you are as an herbalist and acupuncturist. That's so interesting. That's great. So, okay, let's put some context to where you are and what you're up to. So let us know what the outside world looks like to you, and let's hear some of that internal response, please.
So the outside world to me, it looks like hurting. I feel like we're in a period that we wouldn't be in if it weren't for the pandemic. Having so many people around the world at home and able to take a break and pause and breathe and think about what's been going on and have the time to protest and respond to all the injustices that are out there, including, the injustice of being frustrated and stuck at home and having to wear a mask or not wear a mask or whatever. I don't think we would be here if it weren't for the pandemic. And I think it's a gift and a curse at the same time. It's a scary time. There's lots of people dying, and that's terrifying. My personal external world is not very different from what it was pre-quarantine. I'm still working. I'm an essential worker here. So we have a mandate to try to keep people out of urgent care and out of the ER, to keep the beds full. Or to keep beds empty. I did take about a month off because, everybody stayed home, and that was great. It was very healing, but I went back to work from calls of pain. So I've been back at work since April, and my schedule is just filling back up. So that's my outside world right now. Yeah.
And you touched a little bit on how you're seeing things as a curse and a blessing now. Can you say more about what's going on inside of you?
Well, for me, I think there's so much there's so much change happening, and it's an opportunity as a white passing person, as a white person, to stand up and take notice of how bad it really is. You know, we all have our various privileges and our perspectives, and I think now is a chance to see how pervasive other perspectives are, and how we've just been ignored. We've been immune to it, not out of desire to gloss over somebody else's pain, but because we're all working, right? We're all trying to just do the thing, and we don't realize how unaffected we are, right? So now we have this pandemic, and here's an opportunity to slow things down a little bit, and we can actually see, you know, I'm not living in a wealthy neighborhood or with, you know, lots of opulence here, but how is that affected by the fact that I'm white versus if I were of color in the same neighborhood, striving to do the same things? You know, now it's a wake-up call. So, you know, so for me, it's been a bit of a struggle, which has been good. I like the challenge of waking up and trying to meet the needs of those around me and equal things a little bit.
Wow. And before we went live, you were saying that you're doing some advocacy work, or you're volunteering there with the racial justice program?
Yeah. So I'm a leader and a member of Acupuncturists Without Borders, and we go around the world leading relief efforts in areas of disaster or trauma. So we've been working, we have a group of like 40 some odd acupuncturists right now who are trying to find places to help out, either for Black protesters, Black bodies, brown bodies, leaders, but really anybody who's suffering. And so right now we're, you know, because of COVID, we're struggling to find a place to set up a weekly clinic, but we've been going to festivals and sit-ins and rallies and whatever, and setting things up and getting people treated, which is really great, and introducing people to acupuncture in a very gentle and warm way.
Wow, that is wonderful. That's so nice that you are, thank you for doing that. I love hearing stories like that where you are able to be authentic to yourself and serve in the way that you do best, which is as an herbalist and acupuncturist, and then be as of service to people in need doing what you do. That's awesome.
It's a really great opportunity. And, you know, as a white acupuncturist, just, you know, learning to walk within that and doing honor to a system. It's not mine, right? I was adopted in, and willingly, they were, you know, open arms, but it was a university, right? It wasn't a family that taught it to me. It was a university. So, you know, there's precarious levels of appropriation in there that we talk about on occasion. But it is the medicine that I do practice, and happy to bring it to the people. It's the people's medicine, in my opinion.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I hear you about the cultural appropriation. It's like this interesting paradigm to be a part of, because it's like we want to be authentic to ourselves, but we want to have a lot of respect with whose shoulders we stand on, whose giant shoulders we stand on.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm Korean American, and I teach yoga. That's from a different Asian country and heritage. So we do the best that we can. And then, you know, my father grew up teaching Korean martial. I mean, I grew up, and my father was a Korean martial arts teacher. So we had all kinds of all non-Asians studying with my dad, you know. So I was always kind of wondering, like, why are you here as a kid growing up? So we have to, as long as, again, I guess it's just a matter of questioning ourselves and understanding what feels right.
Yeah, so, I think there's you know, you have to defer to those who have a more deep connection in some ways, but you know, the books are out there, and there was definitely a lot of trade between you know, the Silk Road and whatever. Those books were being written and shared, so it wasn't meant to be kind of hoarded, and it's meant to help humanity.
Yeah. So from your view, why Asian medicine and herbs?
Why Asian medicine and herbs? So go back to Shimer College. There was one class in Eastern religions that came up. We had just hired a guy who had his PhD was in Eastern religions. Do you remember him? Doug something or another.
Yeah, Doug was great. From
He was
University
great.
of Hawaii, I think it was. He was great.
Yeah. And he left quickly to get that job at the University of Hawaii, and rightly so. And I remember, actually, I think I dropped the class because I was so overwhelmed with how many classes I had that quarter. But it just opened my eyes. My ex-husband was very into Asian philosophy, and opened my eyes to that. And coming from a Jewish family, I feel like there's a connection there between the way that we see the world and the way that Eastern Asian philosophy sees the world. So it was just kind of always a draw. So I ended up writing my thesis, my capstone project on hands-on healing through Western medicine, the history of Western medicine. But it was really about qi. And I was really interested in that interaction in the body. So what does biophysics look like, and how does that affect us? And is that qi? Is it spirit? Is it soul? What is that? So had actual plans to become a midwife. That did not transpire. I wanted to have kids first before I went into that world. So in the meantime, I picked up a massage degree, a certificate, and half of it was in shiatsu. So I spent a year, 6 months learning shiatsu, and I practiced shiatsu almost exclusively for a couple of years. And so flash forward a bunch more years, the kids are older, we're getting divorced. Now's my chance to go back to school. So I did. I jumped it. I grabbed the ring.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So this is like, I feel like I have to ask you, because there's not that many people that went to the weird little brilliant college that we graduated from. And there's even less people that actually graduated, because it was actually very academically rigorous. It was intense, right? It was
intense.
So what we did, like you said earlier, so the college that we studied at was a great book school. So you have the Western canon, dead white European males. Remember, we always used to say that.
Oh my God, yeah.
So with the electives of gems, like, we read like people of color sometimes, and sometimes we read women once in a while. But that being said, do you feel like the kind of Socratic method of discussion and all that paper writing we did that benefit you to where you are now?
It did. And it really, it definitely benefits me in the day-to-day, I think, in the way that I approach the world. It was incredibly frustrating going back to a traditional university and having to be talked at. Not that questions weren't encouraged, but, it's a very different mindset. Like, I would sit in the back of the room, literally, so that there was nobody behind me. Right? Because I was so used to having this literally a circular discussion around a table, and I couldn't have somebody behind me. You know what I mean? Like, it seems so odd to me. So I was always in the back. They always thought I wasn't really paying attention, but I was furiously taking notes, Yeah. So I think it did. I think it affected the way that I approach learning, which then affected the way my kids have approached learning. Right? It's all about questions. Right. It's all about questions. And now in practice, it's an opportunity to have a dialogue with my patients as opposed to just me telling you what you should do.
That's pretty great.
So not bad for that crazy little college.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Because I feel like I'm glad to hear that the way that you learned that built you up for a thought pattern is kind of going down to your children and influencing them. I think that if we kind of take that and step back, like you said, it's about questions, like the ability to ask first ourselves what we think, or question the data that we're getting. And then it's also about like listening and questioning are really closely linked too, right? So I feel like I'm going to ask you, because again, we're Shimer graduates, like in that process of inquiry, what was the most challenging part of that for you?
At Shimer? Or
just in general, like along the path of inquiry?
For me, the most difficult path of inquiry is always shadow work. So for those unfamiliar, it's, it's taking a flashlight into the dark recesses of who you are and seeing why you respond the way that you do. And I think that's part of why, cognitive behavioral therapy is so popular, is because you start to look at your triggers and see why it is that you respond with whatever your response is. So that's ongoing work. That doesn't ever go away. There's always more to uncover there. That's a lifelong practice.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm glad you said that, shadow work. So if I can ask you, what kind of tools do you use when you are being challenged by shining that flashlight at the darker parts of yourself?
I rely heavily on Qigong, more than meditation. Actually at the start of the pandemic, I felt like my Qigong was not serving me, and I had to go learn TM. That I decided that was what I needed to do. So I did. And learning a mantra was really helpful, and I am so grateful for that. As a skill.
TM is transcendental meditation, by the way.
Right,
Everyone.
right.
Okay.
And I went to the center here in Seattle, and I was given the mantra, and it was everything that I had wanted it to be, which was really just to quiet everything down inside. But that is not grounding work to me. Qigong is grounding, because you're actively moving the energetic flow in your body and trying to right its path work. So, when we feel anxiety in our stomach and it starts to bubble up and we burp or we get acid reflux or whatever, that's we refer to that as a stomach chi it's going backwards. It's not supposed to go up. It's supposed to go down, right? So through Qigong, we're going to move it back down. And so it's an active mental process of envisioning this moving down, right? And storing it where it's supposed to go. It's supposed to flow through the whole body down to your toes. Okay, so that's where I've tried to focus. For me, it's about grounding into my heels, into my dantian, and really, now because I've put in enough work, it's, a couple of deep breaths outside the treatment room or in the, even in the car, just focusing, centering, getting that energy moving where it's supposed to go.
Oh, thanks. That's really helpful. And the nice thing about these practices that can be very effective, like Qigong, is that they're so accessible, right? Like in this weird world, I think there's authentic practices available online. I think it's up to the individual to vet whatever they have,
Yeah.
I mean, what they're accessing to see if it's authentic. By the way, I love car breathing. I think breathing in the car is like the great, how they say sometimes it's easier to have a difficult conversation with someone in the car, because you're contained and it's private, but you have a distraction. I think car breathing is so important in the same way that it's like, I'm doing all these things and I'm driving this heavy vehicle, but is there a way that I can prioritize the breath while all these other things are happening? So,
I like to
Go
sit at stoplights, right? To me, a stoplight is the spot. Like, okay, the world told you to stop, so now stop. Stop the chatter, stop the mind, take a deep breath, center yourself, get ready, go.
I love that. And isn't it nice that traffic lights give us a warning? Because there's a yellow light. Wouldn't it be nice if life was like that sometimes? Actually, that made me think of the pandemic and how it looked like, at least in America, we went from green to red. There were lots of yellow lights that people up there were not paying attention to. So maybe that's just life as well. Maybe there were yellow lights and we realized, or I realized, that I'm not paying attention to. So it feels like a red light.
Well, I think it depends on who your governor was.
Yeah, unfortunately, since there's no kind of country leadership, you're absolutely right. It depends on who your governor is.
No, right. And that's exactly what we're going through now, right? Like that we're, now we're in a tsunami of cases as opposed to just, a couple of sharp spikes. So
that's right.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, I know. What do we do? And the pandemic was pretty intense there in Seattle in the beginning.
It was scary because we just didn't know what was happening, right? It was just so much unknown, and it was here at home, and it was in actually my former hometown. I used to live in Kirkland. They were all being taken to our local hospital. It's scary.
But I'm so glad to see that you're doing well and hear that you are really embracing this role of healing. And you sound like you've got some clear vision going on there. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good to catch up with you.
I know, it's been decades. I know. Oh my gosh. Shh. Oh, that's right. Decades in our mind. It's just, no, it's okay. We are where we are.
It's decades. Yeah.
It has been decades. It's awesome. We're here. We're here. We're doing it. We're doing it. So I hope everyone listening and watching, I hope that you're doing it too. And thank you so much for tuning in. Chaiya, Beth, Sherman, it was so nice to talk with you and catch up with you again.
You too. Let's do it again.
I'd love that. And I just want to give a shout out for some Facebook people. Khalid Elibiad sent big hi from Morocco to Mia and Chaiya.
Hi.
Hi. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Take care. And if you enjoyed this series, you can consider sponsoring my team and I to continue doing this. And that would be at patreon.com/Mia Park. So thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.